Welcome to the Right Now Show, presented by the Laguna Woods Writers Club.
And good morning. I'm Charlie Redner, and welcome to the Right Now Show.
And I'm Judy Saxon, and this is a program where we put the emphasis on writers and the arts. And I must ask, Charlie, are you leaving for a safari after the show?
I'm planning to.
Oh, I love it.
Does it work?
It does. And the hat and all, very nice.
I'll lose the hat for the moment, but obviously it's a setup for what's coming soon.
Yes.
But I wanted to say something first. Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing.
Wow.
Ben Franklin said that.
Way back then,
And
yeah.
when we're ready to introduce our guest, I think she does both.
I do too. She's a perfect example of that.
Yes, she is.
Well, what's happening, Charlie?
I'm back to writing now. I'm under contract to finish another authorized biography, and I'm really putting the pedal to the metal, and I'm doing it. How about you?
Well, I've been motivated to, I have been working on a project, and I was going to have it finished in a year. Well, we've gone past that. So now I'm writing almost every day, and I have a time I like to do it. I get my cup of tea, and I just start typing away. So, and you feel so productive,
You get into a habit, and the habits make you, right? So you do it every day at the same time, and just do a little bit.
So let's make a deal.
What's the deal?
Should we both say that we're going to be, our goal should be to be finished in a year with our projects?
This next year, when we come on around December, we should challenge each other to see how we're doing. I'm for it. How about you?
Me too.
You're
Me
in?
too, yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me tell you about our guest today. Her name is Sonia Marsh. Sonia has written 3 books. One is called Freeways. I think it's on there, Freeways to Flip-Flops. She's written 2 anthologies, and what a life. And she's still having all these adventures. She was born in Denmark. She has lived in Africa, Paris, the UK, the United States. She considers herself a citizen of the world. She joined the Peace Corps. In 2004, she chucked everything. They sold their home, sold their belongings, and moved to Belize, 3 sons and her husband, and she wrote about it. Welcome, Sonia.
Thank you so much.
Hi,
I'm
Sonia.
very happy to be here. I was here, I don't know how many years ago, but this is my second time.
Yes, right.
So thank you for inviting me.
You keep adding to your resume. We have to keep having you back.
This is good. This is good.
I know.
Yeah.
I should have said where you were. You were in Africa with the Peace Corps.
Yes, I was in a country called Lesotho, which is the Mountain Kingdom. It's a tiny country that looks like a soccer ball, stuck right inside South Africa.
And pronounce the name of the country slow and easy.
Lesotho. It's spelled Lesotho, but they pronounce it Lesotho.
Lesotho.
Not Lesotho.
Oh,
Okay.
that's the way it looks like it would be
Yes.
pronounced, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But going back to your first travels, we're still to
Yeah.
refresh our audience about what made you move from Orange County to Belize.
Yes. So we were living in Lake Forest in Orange County, and we had 3 reasons to move. What the main reason was I wanted to take my children away from the entitlement attitude that children had in those days, and show them how other people live with less. And we picked Belize because they speak English, and my husband at the time didn't speak any Spanish or any other language, so it was an English-speaking country. The second reason was my son wasn't doing too well in school, and so we figured that we would take him away from peer pressures and move over there. And I was ready for adventure. I'm always ready for adventure. That's why I call myself gutsy woman, always traveling. And then there was another reason, and that is that my husband at the time didn't want to commute, and the long commutes to LA, wanted a simple life, so we said, let's try it. And so we went to Belize.
Takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
That is gutsy.
Well, actually, we sold everything, so there was no way we could come back. But we did.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like burning the bridge, right?
Yeah.
You can cross over
Yeah.
again.
Get rid of
Wow.
everything in your life and simplify.
I just can't even imagine that.
You know
Selling
what?
everything.
I have to tell you that once you've done it, right now, I can tell you all I have is 2 suitcases in a garage. I'm renting a room. I'm back from the Peace Corps. And it's really a freeing attitude to have in life, is that you can pick up and go anywhere.
Yes.
And I'm not one that likes to have a ton of stuff around me, so I like the freedom of moving.
There's a minimalist for you. I mean, you have 2 suitcases.
Yes, yeah, I enjoy that. So
Wow.
anyway,
Well, I read on the internet when I was researching before our interview that you can pack in 1 day and move. So I believe that with 2
You know what?
suitcases in the garage.
give me an airline ticket and I'll be at the airport in 2 hours, if I could get there in 2 hours with LA traffic. But otherwise, yeah, I just have a thirst for exploring new places. I find that, you know, life becomes so much more meaningful when you can see new cultures and everything. And 2 weeks, I was just in Africa, 2 weeks in Rwanda and Kenya and Tanzania. In a way, it feels like 6 months because you pack so much into it. And you see so many different things that you would never experience here.
Oh, yes.
And then, of course, we can write about it and blog about it.
Right,
And
yes.
make new stories.
Yes.
That's
yes.
what's interesting.
Yes.
So,
Tell us
yeah.
about the first book you wrote. You wrote it when you were a year back from Belize?
You know, I had no experience with writing at all. I kept a journal.
Oh,
like
great.
you said, every day I wrote, but I did it on my laptop because I'm not very good at handwriting. And that way you can correct your mistakes. So I would journal, but what I think what made this book maybe more lively and interesting is the dialogue. Whenever I heard people speaking, I was fortunate, I had time. I would run to my computer and write down the phrases that I heard, or my children speaking, so that I had their voices rather than trying to remember it. So what was it? What did he say to me? And that made it much easier to make it come alive because it was authentic. It was exactly what they said.
Yes.
So I know a lot of people write memoirs based on their past, but if you're going to have an experience today, you know,
Yes, yes.
then I think that would be a good way to do it. Like even they say you go to a coffee shop, you can write down what you hear people say.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And it's a different experience 10 years,
Yeah.
20 years later when you're writing about it. You can't.
You can't remember
No.
exactly.
No, oh no.
You should run
no.
around with a little tape recorder, though.
Yeah,
That would save you
exactly.
from running to your laptop.
Yeah.
Well, what I was so interested in, I think when people think Belize, they think, oh, a wonderful, glorious paradise. But it really wasn't totally. I mean, there were pros and cons, it
Yeah.
sounded like, from your experience.
Yes, and I think I've come to the conclusion that no matter where you are in this world, there's good and bad.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
There is no paradise. And what I said is paradise, you have to find it within yourself.
Isn't that true?
So,
Yes.
you know, you think you're going to this tropical island where you can swim, and I love swimming, and snorkel and all this, and that's fun, of
Yes,
course.
yes.
But then if you want to start a business, that's a whole other story, because then you're interacting with the local people, you make
Right.
mistakes because you're not sure who,
The
you know,
culture
who is in charge of what, the
Right.
culture is different. So a lot of people warned us to wait a couple of years before we did anything, but I'm kind of impatient. So after
No
about
kidding.
3 months, it was like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's get a business going. And that was a mistake. We needed to spend more time figuring out what exactly can we do here. So anyway, so that was sort of a lesson, which caused a lot of stress in our lives because we did some things that we
Yes.
shouldn't have done, maybe, you know? So we
Yes,
stayed a
yes.
year. My husband was there for 15 months, and then I left, and we left with the children and went back to Orange County. But it really was a life-changing experience.
Must have been, and for your children, too.
Yeah, it was. My son, who had been in trouble, was back on track, went to university, did really well. My other two children, every kid is different,
Yeah.
but they all succeeded. My middle son was the one who was a challenge because he loves a teacher in the classroom, and he had to do internet school, which was not what he wanted. But guess what? Now he's a doctor.
Programmer. Oh.
He's a doctor.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So it didn't affect his education at all.
No.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So anyway, it was wonderful, and I never regret anything like in my life, really.
Good attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. So
Wow.
anyway,
And then you've done these two anthologies. And tell us, the first one is about love and courage. And the second volume, that's stories, inspirational stories.
Yes.
Which sounds intriguing.
so what I tell people who are into writing is, you know, if you want to, I think everybody should start a blog. You know, we're not famous. None of us,
Right.
well, I mean, some might be, but the majority of us are not famous. So in order to promote our writing, I think it's very important to start building your blog. And one of the things I did was, it's difficult to write content on a continuous basis. You know, you're always looking for, okay, so what am I going to write about?
Yes.
You know,
Exactly.
what is going to interest people? So instead of me writing, I became lazy. I got other people to send me their stories. And then I would post them on my website, my blog, every week, a new story. And at the end of each month, I would get people to vote for their favorite story. And that favorite story made it to the anthology. So it was
That's not
a
being
building
lazy,
process.
that's being smart.
Well, it was
But I know what
lazy
you're
in that I couldn't think of what to write myself.
It's
all
tough
the
to
time.
write something every day,
Yes, it
or
is.
even once a week to
Well,
have a good,
and yeah.
interesting blog.
So I know you have anthologies yourself, and
Yes.
you put together many stories.
Right.
Right.
And I think it's interesting to read other
I
people's
do too.
inspirational
I think I
stories.
read that on the internet yesterday that you said everybody has a story.
Yeah,
And they
everybody
do.
has a story.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, so some are exciting and
Yes.
some are from the past, and, but it's always, you know, some of them you start crying when you read people's stories, so others, you know, are amusing. But anyway, so I put them all together and into two different anthologies. And that way I was also promoting their stories, and then with book launches I would invite them and have a panel so we could all discuss our stories.
Oh.
So yeah, I think there are many things we can do.
So
to
many
help.
of your contributors were local,
Local.
almost all of them for
Yeah.
the anthologies then.
And I go to a lot of, I used to go to a lot of writers groups, and fortunately one of the groups that I went to, the Southern California Writers Association in the Fountain Valley, and they still meet on a Saturday. So the president of that group managed the movie theaters, not the Regal, the ones that have in San Juan Capistrano, there's one. And he managed to allow me to have my book launch in the movie theater.
Oh,
So that
my.
was, I invited a
Wow.
whole panel, and that's how we did it. So it was at South Coast Plaza at the movie theater.
Are
there.
the anthologies available on your
Yes, they're on my
page in
website.
Amazon,
Yeah,
too,
on
or-
Amazon, yeah.
Really?
You can
Okay.
go to my website, click on them, and they'll take you to Amazon. So
I just admire, that's a lot of work. I mean, you have to go and talk to the people and first research where you want to have the launch, and
Yeah.
then make the contacts, and then all the,
But you know
all
what
the
I-
planning. And
I think everybody, especially if you go to writers' clubs, everybody helps everyone. Writers help
yes,
writers.
yes, they do.
And you know they always want to help you promote something,
Yeah.
especially if they're in the book too.
Yeah, well, I back up and
Right,
say,
right.
editor, just selecting the material,
Yes.
getting a typographer, doing the
Yeah.
book design, getting it printed and published. There's a lot of work in that.
Oh, I know.
There is, and a lot of people do it themselves, but I always tell them that, and this is my personal belief, that if you really want to do something that you're proud of, you are not capable of doing everything yourself.
Right.
So
No,
I hired
no.
editors, and even famous authors have editors.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
We cannot edit our own work. So that's my, so I hired actually 3 different editors for my book.
I have 2 all the time. I have one that I call a line editor that's responsible to make sure everything reads right, and then I have a book editor who really helps me whether the chapters are in the right order or whether this has to go or come or be expanded. So no, I'm an author, I'm not an editor.
Right.
That's
And
what
very
I look
often
at
I don't
myself.
think we know where to start our story. You know, we try to do it in chronological order, but sometimes it's the middle that is the best, the powerful. And we always say, no, I want them to get to that exciting point. I'll start with the beginning. But then you lose them maybe because that's not the most interesting part of the book.
No, and
you have to grab people very quickly up front.
We need
First sentence.
somebody objective. Because we can lose that objectivity.
I agree.
I find, And so now tell us what you're doing now.
Right. Let's catch up.
Well, so I will be honest. I was in 2015. I divorced after 28 years, and I didn't really know what to do because I had mostly been self-employed, writing and stuff like that, and I knew I had to make a living. And instead of sitting home and saying, oh, poor me, I joined the Peace Corps.
Oh,
well,
doesn't everybody?
Naturally.
Another adventure. And I thought that would give me time and to reflect on what exactly I wanted to do. And when you help other people, it takes away, you know, the thoughts about my own life, then I'm doing something for other people. So I went to a little rural village in the mountains of Lesotho. It's 6,000 feet up. There were only about 350 people in my village, and I was teaching English to mainly orphans and vulnerable children. And I did that for 15 months, and that was a life-changing experience as well, because I lived in a hut with no electricity, no running water, no toilet except a latrine outside. And I lived a bit, you live like the locals, but we still had it, I had it slightly better than them because I was living in a nice rondavel, which is a round house with thatch. A lot of them were living in tin shacks. Big families, 5, 6 people, no electricity, no heating. It snows in July because it's the southern hemisphere, so it's the opposite of us. So anyway, I did that, came back in January, and because of writing and blogging, I got somebody followed my blog in Africa and asked me if I wanted to do social media for a safari company.
Wow.
So in a way, everything came together. All the things I have done all my life, and I lived in Africa when I was a child. I lived in Nigeria because my father worked there. And it's like everything came full circle. I'm back in Africa. Now I'm traveling and doing social media for Holden Safaris in Newport Beach. And I'm very happy because I've been to Africa 3 times this year. I just got back 2 weeks ago from Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. And I experienced something that I didn't think I would ever experience, which is I saw the gorillas in the mountains in Rwanda.
And that's on YouTube.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing footage.
You were like 8 feet away.
We were so close. You don't go alone, of course. You go with a guide. And it's not just one guide. There are a team of about 8 people who are helping you because, believe it or not, it's kind of it's a trek. And you're going up this muddy path. And I fell on my bottom a few times. But we're climbing up, and you're holding on to bamboo shoots as you're climbing up, and then you see the gorillas, the whole family, the silverback. And what I didn't realize is how gentle this huge gorilla, is with his son, his 9-month-old baby, and he's stroking his little son with his huge hand. And so you see the love that these animals and how they are towards each other. So that was a wonderful experience for me.
Yes, and you have adopted an elephant.
Yes. So
an infant or whatever.
An orphan
elephant.
So that's another thing that I didn't realize until I started doing these safaris. is, I think a lot of people don't realize that when you go to Africa and you're traveling, a lot of the money goes towards animal conservation.
Good.
From the lodges. And they also build schools for the local villages. So when you take a trip, part of that money goes towards helping with the local community. And so with the elephants, there's a lot of, well, unfortunately there's poaching. And now they've got all these cameras and all these systems, even drones, to watch over and see who is coming to, you know, and so there's a lot of technology today, and that a lot of it comes from tourism. And so the Elephant Orphanage is in Nairobi, and it's the David Sheldrick Foundation or Trust. And Dame Sheldrick started the orphanage. She was the one who figured out how to make baby formula for elephants. She decided that, and they started feeding the elephants. So we adopted Sana Sana. And we get updates every month on on this elephant, who she's playing with, how she's doing. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And isn't it wonderful that the money where it's being used?
Yes. I never realized it.
I didn't either. I
didn't think tourism could cause sustainable projects in Africa, which is what it does. Which, you know, and the fact that these lodge owners live there, and they hire the local people,
the locals, right,
to, you know, work in the restaurant or whatever, and they grow the vegetables often that we eat as tourists. So it causes a whole way for the local community to make money, and the schools to educate the children. And then when tourists come, they often give books and pencils and stuff to the children.
Tell us about the guide. You wrote a guide from Africa just a couple of weeks ago, a function we had.
You had a function,
right?
And which
Holden.
Yes, Jim Holden was there, and he is a storyteller, and Craig is a guide, a safari guide, and he came from South Africa, and he was sharing stories about his guiding experiences. And I'm also reading a wonderful book by a man named Peter Allison, who I can't remember the exact title. I should have brought his book, but he was a guide in Africa as well. And every story is unbelievable what they go through in their training.
I imagine it takes a long time. Like
to
you
become
were
a guide.
telling us earlier that they have to really study individual animals that you're going to go see, so that they know
the behavior of all the animals. So you, as long as you have a good guide, and usually, I mean, they're all excellent, not all, but the ones we have are excellent guides because we know them. They will take you on a walking safari, and they can read the behavior of the animals. So if they see anything like the elephants when they flap their ears and different things, you can tell there might be a problem. They know how to, they sense it. So they will not take you anywhere where it's dangerous.
I see, yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Fascinating, oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's been, as I say, I'm back in Africa. So I started in Africa, and now I'm back in Africa, but I'm also happy to be in Newport Beach. And so I can have the best of both, the travel.
Tell people how they could find your website and your blogs. How do they do that?
So my blog is Gutsy, Gutsy, living.com, Gutsy Living. That's my personal blog, but as I said, I do social media for Holden Safaris, and I post stories about animal conservation, the adoption of the elephants. So I'm doing both now. My own and Holden Safaris.
And think of the good you're doing, Sonia. Oh my, just for people to become informed about all this.
I have a lot of friends who like to follow what I do because they might not have time to travel, or
I've been following you for 5 years.
I know you have.
Charlie
has
I've
been
read
wonderful.
Everything when you were in the Peace Corps.
Yes, every article I wrote or blog post, you have been wonderful following me, and we've kept in touch. So that's been wonderful too. Yeah. So anyway, I'm planning another trip next year. So far I've been to Zambia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and South Africa. next year I'm going to a conference in Cape Town, which will be my first time. And I hear Cape Town is like, it's like the coastline of Orange County, Laguna Beach.
Really?
But they have vineyards as well.
Oh my
I have
goodness.
a couple of South African friends that might be able to give you firsthand what it's like.
Right, I would love to meet them.
Live here in the village, yeah.
So are they writers as well?
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
of course. Everybody I know
yes,
is a writer.
is a writer.
If they're not when they meet me, they are.
Yeah.
They have to be, because I always encourage people to write. And you and your journal.
Yes.
Got to keep going.
I know, I know.
Writing.
I have to thank Holden Safaris. We held a fundraiser for the Spoken Word Club, and they were so generous. They helped us raise money. And our little Spoken Word Club, our little poetry club, is going to go on happily into the next year and beyond with what they were able to do for us.
Yeah, and you had a wonderful turnout, I heard.
We had 100 people?
Yeah, we had, thanks to Charlie and everything he did, promoting that and we were helping with his anthology, and everybody wanted a copy of the anthology, so that was
the
also...
Hummingbird Review, African issue, yes.
The Africa issue.
Well, we have to close this.
I know.
We need another half hour, Sonia.
That went by very quickly. I enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Thank you for
we
coming.
Enjoyed having
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you have some wise words to leave us with?
I have a wise word, yes. I had a wise word from last month that I couldn't find. I found it.
Oh, good.
No matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. And that was said by the one and only Robin Williams. And I think that's a very sage
I do
thing
too.
to say.
I do too.
How about you?
Well, I have one. Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. And that was Andre Gide.
And that's Sonia. She could be.
I can relate to
Sonia
that
lives it.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
And don't forget the Writers Club in the Performing Arts Center, second Friday of every month, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Dining Room 1.
Well, I'm Charlie Redner, and see you later.
I'm Judy Saxon. Thanks for watching.